I'm Dawn Montefusco, and this is Right From Your Heart, how to unleash your creativity, share your message, and leave a lasting legacy. And today, we have one of my favorite people back, Norma T. Hollis. She's an international authority on authentic leadership and self-awareness. She's a coach, consultant, speaker, trainer, and author of programs, services, and books that help people deepen their knowledge of self, transition difficult times, and follow their authentic life path. Her signature program, the Authentic Voice System, adds depth, complexity, and content to what it means to be authentic and offers success roadmaps for individuals and the organizations they work for. She's the former owner of a speakers bureau and coaching company and continues to help people all over the world find, live, and share their authentic voice. In addition to the 9 workbook and 26 audio series, Norma is the author of The Process to Become a Professional Speaker, 10 Steps to Authenticity, Blueprint for Engagement, Authentic Leadership, and is a contributor to multiple books and magazines. That sounds so good.
I like to write.
How are you? Tell us a little bit about what you're doing these days and what's going on.
Oh, girl, I'm just busy. I just got back from China a couple months ago. I was teaching my whole program that I wrote, my authenticity process, to Chinese students.
Wow.
I am, my book is doing very well. It just came out a few months ago. I just put I just started my online school.
Oh.
So I've written so much stuff and I couldn't figure out what to do with it. Like, you know, you can't just do books. I mean, you can, but I wanted to put it in some type of content or context that had wide appeal. So I just started my school, AuthenticityU.com, the letter U.
I love it.
The letter U.com. So that's where I have all of my 40 years of writing is going to be held in that one location, and it's all about self-awareness and being authentic. So I'm really excited about that. I have a soft launch now, but we'll do a real launch probably in about 3 months.
Oh, great. That sounds fantastic. So you help people tap into their authentic voice.
Yes,
and
I do.
really tap into who they want to be in the world. Why is that so important? I mean, you know it.
Well, we know what makes us different as human beings is our authenticity, what our gifts and talents are and how we use that. And when you know, I've studied this for all my life, actually. And it's just very evident that there seems to be an attempt to strip us of our authenticity when we're very young. And our parents even get so ingrained in that they don't even understand what they're doing. So for example, people like me, I was talking very early and I talked a lot when I was a kid and I was told don't talk so much. So I stopped talking so much and talking to who I am. Verbal, one of my gift is verbal, which most writers have the verbal gift, whether they write, speak, read, whatever, but they like words and words is a part of them. So when they kept telling me I talk too much, I just stopped talking so much. And so my authenticity was lost because I'm a very good speaker. I have a message, I have words to share, I have wisdom to share, I have all this stuff that's based on words.
Yeah.
And if I'm shut down, I'm not being authentic. So I help people realign with who they really are, who they are in terms of what their gifts and talents are, what comes easy to them, what they love to do, as opposed to sometimes what they chose to do or what they were led to do in order to have an income.
Yes, that's so amazing. You know, it's funny what you say about words and writers. You know, we always say we don't get talker's block, you know, unless we're told not to talk, which is a totally different situation. But many times we talk about finding our voice when we're writing, even really finding and tapping into that voice. Do you find that some people, well, yeah, I'm sure you do. Some people try to be something they think they should be or write something they think they should write, and it just doesn't land because they haven't really gotten into what they want to say?
Yes. Well, that's very true. And I will give you an example from my experience for having my speakers bureau. So I would meet people and they would say to me, you know, I want to be a professional speaker. I want to be the best speaker in the world, you know, whatever their goal is. And I would ask them, well, so who do you admire as a speaker? And tell me about that. And they would begin to tell me who they liked, and you can fill any blank in. And then I'd ask them, well, you know, would you speak for me, please? Let me hear you speak. And then they start to speak like the person who they admire.
Yeah.
And of course, it never works. It's just it's just not who they are. It's not authentic. So it's the same thing with your message. And your message, what I like to tell people is your message comes from the thread in your life. Everybody's life has a certain thread of things that keep showing up, that you keep gravitating to, that is basically who you are. And when the job for a writer or a speaker or whoever that's sharing a message is to recognize that thread and what the message is in that thread. And it's not what someone else tells you, it's what your gut will tell you when you get there. Sometimes you can get there on your own and sometimes you can't get there on your own. But that's what you're looking for. And we may write all around it and speak all around it. But when we get to that bullseye, boy, that's when it really works.
Ah, that's great.
Yeah.
A lot of writers will say also, and speakers, but people in general who have a message to give or they have something they really want to say, they really believe it's their calling. They feel like they are being called to get a message out. And I feel like people are never really satisfied in life if they know they have a calling, whether it's to write a book or share a message in another way or write a blog or an essay or to speak. What is it about having a calling that if it's not fulfilled, people just are not the same without it?
Well, you are really speaking my language there, because I talked about my calling when I was 2 years old. At least I tried to. They didn't understand me. And it's only in the last year or so that my siblings, at least, have accepted that it is truly a calling. When people have a calling, I refer to it as purpose, and purpose that is remembered, or it may be not remembered in its detail, but remembered in its substance, in your soul and in your spirit, in your gut. And so when you have that calling, it's your soul, your spirit, and your gut reminding you, hey, you got something to do. Are you doing it? And it kind of keeps knocking from the inside, and it just knocks and knocks, and it won't leave you alone. And you just have to listen to it and respond to it. And that's what happens when we are being called to do that and we reject it and we run from it. That's when our lives get unsettled and we really can't, things don't work. But when we surrender to it and recognize it, and even especially when we stop and look at how the threads of our life are leading us to that, it's a synchronicity that really allows it to happen and to explode in a big way.
I love that synchronicity. I feel like there's a surrender. You finally just give up. I know with some of the writing I've done, some of the books, they never came together. They never gelled because, again, I was living into someone else's life. I was living into what people say, oh, you should write this and you should do this and you should do that. And then I was like, I really love true stories and I love poetry. And I want to write about why I believe that we need to write our true stories, and I want to write my poetry. And as soon as I did, I was starting to write books. All of a sudden it started to happen, but I had to surrender because I was like, well, what do you mean I'm not a novel writer? Someone told me when I was little I was supposed to write novels. I don't do well with fiction at all. And so I was struggling. It was like, oh my God, it was an uphill battle. But in my experience, I know you've seen it, and when you talk about synchronicity, when people finally just say, excuse my language, fuck it. I'm going to do what I want to do, and this is what I'm feeling the call to do in my soul. And they do. It's like the world sort of opens up and guides you. You must see that a lot, and even in your own life.
Well, without a doubt. Well, in my research with authenticity and self-awareness, it's very clear that who we are is our inner voice, in that. And so people who are writers, what they're writing is what the inner voice speaks to them.
Yes.
And the inner voice is also the God connection or the life connection. So, I heard just recently, well, I have to be honest with you. I only recently refer to myself as a writer. I always say I write, but I've never said I'm a writer. Okay. I always said I'm an intellectual artist. I'm this, I'm that. It's not that I had anything against it. I just never really perceived it that. I write purpose of human development. But writing is and then I heard someone say that God was a writer. I said, He wrote the world, right?
Well, yeah, it says the first line. Isn't the first line, God created the word, or there was the word?
Yes.
Like,
So yeah, it is that calling. It is that, I think it's part of the whole process of a purpose and the whole process of entering the planet and even leaving the planet and coming back again, or whatever your beliefs may be.
Mm-hmm.
But all of that cycling of purpose is remembered more by the writers than anybody else and the creative people. And that's what we're attempting to do, is step into what we were sent to create. I think we're all sent to create something.
Absolutely.
So whether it's a better life, a better day, it's to create something for somebody else, create something for the world, we're here to create. And I think, and I look at the life, and I also want to mention that a lot of writers start with poetry, which I did as well. Yes. And that poetry is that feeling, that creativity. That's our first recognition of that feeling inside that's driving us, of that push, that knocking to get out. And then as we mature with the poetry, we move on to writing our stories, and then we end up having stories. Because the poetry comes when we're younger, when we're very much into the hormones are strong and the feelings are strong. We don't understand them. We got to write about them and all that. But then 10, 20 years later, we get to understand them a bit. We've lived a little bit more life, and then we can explain them and talk about them more. But that's when we realize we really have this thing for writing, this thing for creating. And we're just not human if we don't create.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
absolutely. You know, there's a lot of studies now that's showing that being creative, whatever that means for you, right? Creativity has lots of different, you're being creative. When we create businesses, we create, you know, meetings and workshops and people to come, that's definitely creative. And they found that people doing just the actual more, I guess, more garden variety creative, like, you know, ballroom dancing or art or writing, that it's really opens up stuck spots. It helps people heal from all kinds of things, lowers blood pressure, lowers stress levels, that kind of thing. You know, can you speak to that in your experience writing your books, how it just felt good? It just felt like you're being you.
Well, the one thing I would say about my writing, and yes, it is being me, and it was about writing about all my experiences as I was going through this. I had a 30-year period where I was literally downloaded, is what I refer to, because I refer to myself as just being blindly led. Didn't know where I'm going, but I just know I'm being led. You got to do this, you got to write this, you got this, whatever. And so I just had to make friends with that energy and allow it and be in partnership with it as it unfolded. I could always feel when I had finished a phase, because it was as if an energy entered me and guided me along the path a certain way. And when that energy's role was done, it left, another energy came in.
Wow.
And then I felt, that was really what it was like for me, because I wrote in my program, which is based on 9 different angles of how we see ourselves. I think I had a different energy for every angle, and it was over a period of 30 years, and I could feel them coming in and out. I didn't understand it all. That's why I said I was blindly led. And in my particular case, because it was such an intense experience, most of that time I didn't work full time, because I couldn't. I mean, work got in the way of the work I'm supposed to be doing. And that's for all of us, really. But I had the opportunity to, because of health issues, I didn't work full time like most people do. So I had a lot of practice on being independent when I was younger. So I learned how to be broke. So I don't really want to say it that way, but I learned how to work with money in ways that most people never experience. They don't have to, but I did. So I learned a lot, and I built a lot of character with that process as well, and a lot of good, great values that hold me up a lot now. But yeah, you know, when you have that calling, nothing's right until you follow it.
I agree.
And in my research, it's a spiritual thing. And if you don't follow it, that's when you get sick and you come back to do it again, because you still have to do for your own life, for your own soul's maturation and journey and what have you. You have to experience certain things, the pain, the pleasure, and all of those things to get to where you're going. And if we believe that energy never dies and this awareness, this long-term situation, then you want your energy to be as healthy as long as possible for whatever your journey is going to be.
Absolutely. I think it's a very spiritual process. I think that's what we're here to accomplish. And when that little voice, if we ignore that little voice, it doesn't go away. It's a haunting. I've met people that suppress it, but it's always there, you know, and then it's just sad. And I think it does make people sick. I think it makes people angry. I think it makes, you know, all kinds of stuff happen. So yeah, it's a very, I think writing and listening to that voice. I love the way you said that. Just really using even just journaling. Do you ever journal? Do you ever just use your journaling as a way to speak to that voice?
No, I just speak to it. I
Oh,
just
good.
talk to
Oh, I
it.
love this.
We have a great relationship. We've had it since I was 8 years old. So I'm always talking to
Tell
my.
us the story again.
Why don't you listen to music? Well, I got too much going on in my head, so I'm good. I'm
Tell
good.
us the story when you were 8 years old.
Yeah, my story when I was 8. There are a couple stories when I was 8. 8 was when I had a ear infection, and the ear infection, because my eustachian tube was weak, it came out of my ear. That's right. This is a writing group, right? So when I was a child at the age of 8, I woke up one morning with a violent earache. To the doctor, we rushed with lightning speed to be told my ear would always be. It seems a cold started in the nose, traveled through a weak tube to crust on the earlobe, creating a hole in my middle eardrum as the journey of my spirituality and authenticity was then begun. So
Wow.
that's the start. Yeah, that's a 35 stanza poem that I wrote years ago.
Wow.
And I usually use that in the beginning of my presentations because it helps to talk about my ear.
Yeah.
So with the hole in my eardrum, the only way they could stop the infection was to put a solution on my ear directly, and it felt like acid on the inside of my head.
Wow.
So it was really, really painful. And then the following year at 9, I had earaches regularly. I had to go back to the doctor regularly, and I had earaches regularly. It was 2 painful, very, very painful years. And the adults in my life didn't really get what I was going through. I mean, they got it, they didn't really know how to help me. And since they didn't, the voices came. So I'm walking to school one day and I'm 8, and the voices started talking to me, and I said, okay, if you're I know about voice, I know about spirituality, I know about all that stuff. I said, but if you're the voice I should be listening to, then prove it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And in the next week, show me somebody with red socks. And this somebody mentioned the word elephant in a conversation, and maybe then I'll believe you. Well, sure enough, before the week was over, somebody walked by in red socks, and somebody mentioned the word elephant in the conversation. So I did it again for the next 5 weeks or so, something different, and it always happens.
Wow.
But so that is what started my journey of trust and partnership with my voice. But I want to tell you about last year Thanksgiving, and a friend of mine who is kind of a partner in the speaking industry, books me for some things. He translated my book and what have you. He came by Thanksgiving morning for a conversation we were having, and I looked down. He had on red socks. And that was a time when I was making the decision of some changes in my business and changes in how I was doing this calling that I'm responding to. And I said, okay, let's try it again. I said, okay, if the changes I'm making are the right changes that you'd have me make, then in the next week, since I saw the red socks, somebody mentioned the word elephant. So I watched Family Feud, and about 4 days later, somebody mentioned elephant in an answer. And I said, well, that's kind of it, but I was really looking for more for a conversation. That's kind of how I asked it. I wanted in a conversation. Well, the 7th day, I'm at a friend of mine's having a workshop, and I'm there. And she's talking about how elephants, when they're babies, get on a stake to their neck, and they go in circles. And then that's as far as they think life is. And that's as far as they go. And so her whole talk was about elephants. And I said, yes, there it is again. And of course, the context of it as well was phenomenal. So that stuff works. When you create that relationship and you respond to your calling and you listen to your voice, you do anyway as a writer, but you go a little deeper into it and go into partnership with it. It just shows up in all kinds of places. And that's just one example of how it has showed up all of my life. And even my friends now recognize when it shows up, because then it shows up in our life, which gives us some validation. So it's a real powerful tool that builds relationship and just does wonderful things in your life if you just allow it to.
That's fantastic. What I'm hearing is this sense of real surrender, and I love that because it's a power place where we decide to do what we're here to do, whatever that is. Yeah. And do you have any, well, first, I want to ask this one question though. When did you first realize language had power for you? That your words had some power?
Well, I have to say that at 2 phases. The first phase actually was when I was 2 years old. Mm-hmm. Because when I was 2 years old, and it's a combination story between my father, my mother, and my memory. And because my father was teaching me my name, and he was saying, your name is Norma. Norma's your name. What's your name? And I would always say my. And he would say, no, not my name, your name. Your name is Norma. Not my name. My name is Daddy. Your name is Norma. What's your name? And I would continue to say my. And my father tells that story now. My mother tells a story about how at 2 years old, my silky hair that most African American children are born with all of a sudden turned into African American hair. And she cried because usually if you get it by 2, it's going to stay for a while, but it didn't. So I imagine it was the same time. And I remember a frustration with my father very early in life that set the stage for us to never really have a good relationship. So I realized then that something with this words thing, that I couldn't get the words out. I don't know if I knew the word. I mean, I clearly didn't have the muscle tone to say the words, but something in that brought that awareness to me. And then the second thing probably was, and I have to say it's in stages for me. So when I first finished all my work and I'd written all my books, and I had a speakers bureau at that time, and internet was relatively new. So I was able to secure 20 different speaking engagements of events that I did. I went from city to city and had people in my bureau represent me and help me make it happen. So that's when I got feedback from people who found power in my words. And these were people who wanted to be speakers, and I was showing them how to be more authentic in their message as a speaker. And then, so that was about maybe 10, 15 years ago. And then the third time was just when I was in China about 4 months ago. And I was working with university students and helping them to find their authentic voice. And a number of the students in a class, they weren't even in my class, but were there at the university, wanted to meet with me. And I was able to help them shift their thoughts on what they're going to do with their life, because they were following what their parents said for them to do. And they didn't know who they were or what the opportunities were in the world. So as I met with them as a group and taught them and then saw them one-on-one, I have to tell you, my confidence on the work that I've done, my clarity on who it's for and what to do with it, all of that just expanded significantly. So I'm new with that, and that's the new me. That's the school. That's all the things that I'm doing now. That's just excited about moving forward.
Yay! I love this. I love your
It's been a long journey.
What do you have one little piece of advice? Say, someone who's scared. We get scared. We hold back. What would you say to someone who's so close to just saying, I'm going to do it. I'm going to write this book and I'm going to show the world what I got?
Well, I would, just do it may not be enough. I'm listening to this branding material now, and they say that people respond more to pain than to pleasure.
It's true.
So let me give you a little pain to think about. One thing about those of us who have a calling, and especially writers, is that we recognize we're here to do something. We recognize we came to make a difference somewhere in this world, wherever it may be and however hard it may be. So all I want you to think about is how you're going to feel when you go back wherever you came from and they ask you how you did.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh,
I know my motivation is I want to go back and I want to hear, you did a great job. You did our expectations. We're really proud. Take a rest. We got a good assignment for you next, or whatever, But I know I'm not going back to say, hey, you didn't do, you picked this over us. You picked this or that, and you didn't do what we asked you to do. And what's up with that? So I just say, just do it, because for me, the fear of going back and not fulfilling my assignment, if you will, is far more fearful to me than anything that this world has to offer. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to make sure I do everything I can to fulfill the assignment I was here to do. And for me, it's been a lifelong sacrifice, but it's been a sacrifice of joy. And it's been some really, 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 really hard times, especially financially. But I just stayed with the faith that, well, dang, if you send me here to do it, I know you're going to send me what I need to make it happen. So all I got to do is make sure I keep my thoughts straight and my focus right, and keep the extraneous extractions away from me and just remember why I'm here. And I can still have a lot of fun in the process. It's not, I don't have to stop having fun, but I just have to be a little wiser in terms of what I do, how I do it, and the ways that I do it. You know, I'll be 70 in another month or so.
Wow, you look
Yeah, I don't just say that.
fantastic. Oh my gosh. That's
Well,
amazing.
you know, I learned recently a different perspective on tithing. And they say that what you tithe is what you get back. So when you tithe money, you get money back. Well, I tithed time. I tithed 30 years, 40 years of giving my life, my experience, to doing what I was sent to do. And so that's why I can say I'll be 70 and say it in the way that I can and know that I'm going to get the reaction that I got, which is really, really cool. So think about what you're tithing. How are you spending your time with writing? How are you spending your time with your calling? How are you prioritizing your life to fulfill the assignment you were here to do? So that's how you get it done. That's how you get past the fear. You remember you want to tithe your time to do the work that you were sent to do. And that generates the money. It may not be, I've never really had a lot of money. I know it's coming at 70 now. I see now what I've done and what I've created and how now society even has systems that I can put it in that makes it great. I had to wait for society to catch up with me.
Yes, okay? Totally.
So for those of you who are young, 20, 30, 50, you know, society's still catching up with you because you get the idea before society's ready for it sometimes. And you have to grow into it while society grows ready for you. Because I know when I was younger, I said, I was born 30 years early. But now this stuff is perfect for the 30, 40, 50-year-old people. So I'm sure if you're watching this, you're probably in a similar boat.
Oh my gosh, you're a dream. I love you. Like, I feel better. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. This is amazing, you know? So whenever that doubt comes in, I'm going to use that. I'm definitely going to be like, wait a second. I want to say that I'm doing the thing that I said I was going to do, you know, and see what comes later. Another thing is, I love that once we step into what we're supposed to do, it's like one step at a time, right? One step at a time.
Right. And as difficult as finances has been for me, even in the first part of the year, now that I'm clearer on what I'm doing and I'm able to figure out where to put it and all that, stuff is showing up. I mean, it's showing up left, right. I mean, even you called, and I said, okay, sure, I'm free, whatever.
Yeah.
And everything does not lead to income, but it leads to exposure and it leads to clarity.
Absolutely.
So the more you do, the more you're going to understand what you're doing, and the easier it's going to be to get to that path.
Oh, I love it. I love it. You have a great free gift for us.
I do have a free gift, and I'm not sure what I gave you before, but I want to make sure now that you have AuthenticityU.com.
Yes.
So good. So this is my new school. And as I'm speaking now, there's about a dozen or so classes up. By the time this airs, or people might see it, it may be more than that. And there are a couple of free gifts on the site, and also some classes you can take. So there's a button that says Start Here. And if you do that, then you'll get some sense of how to move forward. And then there's an assessment, a couple of assessments, and one's a $19 video one, and one's a free assessment. So start with the assessment and then keep going. And then come back, and a week later, you might see some more classes up there.
Oh, I love it. I'm going to check it out too. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So generous. Well, Norma, it's been great as usual. And I look forward to doing this again sometime. And
let me know.
Yeah, I can't wait to check out the new site and everything. You have a great day.
Well, thank you, Dawn. This has been wonderful. I love your wonderful energy and your great smile. I love the work you're doing. And all you writers, keep writing.
Yes, keep writing. Awesome. You take it easy today. Thank you.
All right, sweetie. Take care.